Okay. I'm starting recording and I will count you down. 5, 4, 3, 2.
You first, E.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being on time. Welcome back to our second day of Map to College 2020. Give us about 2 minutes for everyone else to log in on time and we will get started.
As people are logging on, just letting you know that this presentation is going to be recorded. We'll say that a few different times. We'll let you know where you can find it, as well as the link at the end, and we'll probably send one out to the email that you used to register in case there's something later on that you want to go back and look at again, or if you are being a sharer of knowledge in your community and able to send that to other people if they weren't able to attend today. We'll just give everyone another minute to try and log on, make sure that we don't miss anybody here in the beginning, but thank you for being here. All right, everyone, welcome back today. Thank you so much for coming back to the second day of our Map to College for 2020. In a time when so much is uncertain, we're very lucky to be able to present this information to you, though it be in a virtual setting. And we're very happy that you're here with us today. Again, for those of you that just joined, we are recording this session. It will be available to view on our website later on. Today, to be able to ask questions, we have the question and answer button down at the bottom. You can submit your questions there. Some of them we will be answering with the presenter, and some of them I will be the person moderating back and forth. Next slide. You're on mute, sir.
Of course, someone had to be on mute already. Yesterday, we went over the 3 sessions, which included the personal insight questions. Next, we went over the community college transfer route. And then thirdly, we went over the private school route. Today, we're going to be joined by Angel Max Guerrero, Valerie and Renee Stevens, and Rejan Cuarto. And the first session we're going to talk about is the University of California application. Session 5 will be the CSU application process. And session 6 will be something that we all need, financial aid. Again, my name is Emmanuel Padilla, he, him, his pronouns. And my email is down there at the bottom, emmanuel.padilla@ucsf.edu. Please utilize me for whatever questions you have past this presentation. If you still have a curiosity, or you're like, yo, I just need clarification on something.
My name is Karen Luriana M. She, her, hers, ella, and Zia. My email is there as well. The 3 schools that I serve currently are June Jordan School for Equity, Jefferson High School in Daly City, and San Francisco International High School. So if you're a family that's viewing from one of those schools, just know that I am serving them, and please reach out specifically with different connections that we can make for your specific campus, but anyone else as well is welcome to send something out.
And I just have to say, I work at Burton High School. Shout out to my pupils.
Today, we are joined by many special people. The first one that's going to be presenting for us, we have Angel Max Guerrero, who works at UC Berkeley. He is the regional manager, and he works for the Early Academic Outreach Program. So handing it over to you, Angel Max.
All right. Thank you very much, Emmanuel and Karen, for the invitation and the opportunity here to join the scholars out there in the virtual world. Friends and guests, my name is Angel Max Guerrero, and I am a regional manager with the UC Berkeley Early Academic Outreach Program. My area is primarily Emeryville, all the way down to Union City, where I have the honor of working, supporting, mentoring 7 college advisors in doing their work with the respective East Bay students we work with there. I use the pronouns he, him, his, and él. I'm also a child of immigrants from Guatemala and Mexico. I am a product of the Mission District. That's where I grew up. And I'm also a product of the public educational school system. A shout out to Sanchez Elementary and Everett Middle School. And I also attended UC Berkeley, where I graduated with my Bachelor of Arts in English in 1991. And recently I completed my master's program at the University of San Francisco. So I'd like to continue by saying welcome and thank you to each and every one of you for considering the University of California as hopefully a future home campus for you. So thank you for your consideration of our university system. It has plenty to offer. And so let's talk a little bit more about how to prepare your application by the time you submit it this November 30th, because November 30th is the deadline. The title specifically for this workshop is Presenting Yourself on the UC Application. And you will hear me say Go Bears. And let's start now with the Go Bears. All right, Go Bears. All right, so what we're looking here on this particular slide is a demonstration, a picture of the 9 undergraduate UC campuses throughout the state of California. You may notice that UC San Francisco is not pictured in this graphic here, and that's because you may know this already from yesterday's day 1, that UC San Francisco is the one graduate campus of the UC system. So the UC San Francisco is not available to you as an option as a high school senior. That leaves you with 9 undergraduate campuses from which to choose from, including my alma mater, UC Berkeley. So we do want to point out that, I quickly want to point out that some of these UC campuses have medical centers. For example, UC Davis, Irvine, UC Los Angeles, UC San Diego, and UC San Francisco. They have medical centers attached to their campuses. Also, some of you may be interested in law, so I do want to mention that there are some UC campuses that also have a law school on their campus, and that would be UC Berkeley, UC Davis, UC Irvine, UCLA, UC Santa Cruz, and we have another UC law school in San Francisco called the UC Hastings College of Law. Go Bears. Okay, this is a very important timeline here for you. The UC application for this upcoming year of 2021-22, that's the year that you'll hopefully be a first-year student at a UC campus. That application opened up on August 1st, this past August 1st. And of course, you have between August 1st until November 1st to create your account, work on this application, put in all your grades, all your activities, your PIQ responses, and then beginning on November 1st, you can submit your UC application. So please note that the application opened on August 1st. However, you can only submit your UC application beginning on November 1st with a hard deadline of November 30th. So my recommendation to you is if you have most, if not all of your UC application done by mid-November, right before Thanksgiving, you're pretty much in good shape. In February and March of 2021, you will begin to receive notification of admissions decisions from the UC campuses you've applied to. And by May 1st, we call that Statement of Intent to Register, or the SIR deadline. By May 1st, you have to indicate to your UC campus that admitted you that you have the intention of enrolling in their campus. So for example, if I've been admitted to UCLA, I want to go to UCLA, I need to let UCLA know before or by May 1st that I intend to enroll at UCLA. And then between May and June, some of you may find yourselves in a situation of being placed on the wait list. And you will receive waitlist admission notification between the time period of May and June 2021. Go Bears. All right. Before you start, we want you to be as prepared as possible. So on that note, I want to thank you again for those of you that joined us yesterday for day 1, and for those of you that are new to day 2, or who who are continuing from day one here for day two is you are definitely taking the steps to be as prepared as possible. So a little bit further for you to be prepared, I want you to consider your major and your campus options within the UC 9 undergraduate choices you have. So please do your research on which major you are looking or you're intending to declare to state on your application rather. Also, you want to get your unofficial copy of your transcripts ready. I know we're all working virtually, so you may have to identify the official at your school site. It may be a counselor or a registrar or a vice principal, but you got to figure out soon who can give you an unofficial copy of your transcripts. Also, you should be already beginning or beginning writing your responses to the personal insight questions, the PIQs. Some of you may already have drafts, so we definitely need you to start moving at a faster clip now, because before you know it, next week, we're already in the month of October. So I definitely believe, and I'm going to suggest on all of you strongly right now, get moving on those PIQ responses. And also create a document that outlines all of your activities, awards, and work volunteer experiences. Some of you may already have a document called a brag sheet. And by all means, you want to fill that brag sheet out. You want to have it prepared along with these other documents to get you ready. Because when you create your account on the UC application, you want to have all this information at your fingertips and not be slowed down. Go Bears. All right, now I do want to discuss a little bit about the importance of accurate details. I do want to share that this UC application is what we call a self-reported application, meaning we do not ask you for transcripts. We do not ask you to mail in any kind of progress reports or quarterly reports or anything of that nature. You are filling out the online application only. So we're taking you on your honesty. We're banking on the fact that you are being honest and authentic with the information you're sharing on the UC application. So we must stress that you got to provide accurate details. So again, this is why we're stressing to prepare yourself by having these documents ready. Your academic history must be accurately reported. All enrollment at every school or even a community college where you may have been involved with a community college course, that kind of information, all your courses, all the grades you received, even if they are non-passing grades like D's or F's, classes that you may have repeated, we need those grades as well. All that information must be accurately reported. Even though you're doing self-reporting, we need you to provide accurate information on the UC application. If a student accepts an offer of admission, UC requires official academic records to verify the information you are self-reporting now. So the deadline is November 30th for your UC application, but the UC campuses will begin to ask for official records later on in 2021, and they will do a thorough review of those official records beginning in the summer, June, July. So you don't want to misreport information. You don't want to misrepresent any information. So please make every effort starting now by securing those preparation documents to report accurate information. Also, in your additional comments boxes in your academic history section, that box can be used to provide detailed information or explanations about specific academic issues you may have encountered at your school site. For example, declining grades, course selection issues. Those are things you can talk about in the additional comments box that you will find in the academic history section of the UC application. Also, you want to report examination scores if you choose to. I know you all have heard about a lot of recent changes with the UC testing policy. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. But if you do choose to share any testing results, scores such as AP, IB, international exams, etc., you want to report accurate results, accurate information in the UC application as well, because again, you are self-reporting. And regarding your activities and awards, you should definitely not exaggerate. Please don't exaggerate. Don't fabricate. Don't embellish. Don't take creative license with adding extra details that may not be authentic or accurate. You want to be as authentic as possible, as accurate as possible with all your activities and awards that you will choose to share in the self-reporting section of the UC application. Go Bears. Just remember that honesty is the best policy. All right, looking at this slide here, before you start, I'm just giving you a little sneak peek here of what it looks like online for you in the UC application. Some of you who've created the account and have begun the application, this may look familiar to you already. Go Bears. All right, this also may look familiar to you for those of you that create an account and have begun your application. We're just giving you a sneak peek for those that haven't had a chance yet. Go Bears. A lovely picture. Go Bears. All right, now the requirements. I do want to spend a few moments to review that we do have some requirements for you to qualify for what we call freshman admissions or entering student, first year student admissions. Students must meet UC's subject and GPA requirements. Now the subject requirements you may be familiar with by now, and you should be as a senior. They're known as the A through G courses or the A through G pattern. Or the A through G subjects. So just to recap for those of you that may have just not remembered at this moment, you need 2 years of history or social science, 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 2 years of science with laboratory, 2 years of a language other than English, or LOTE as we sometimes say, LOTE, language other than English, 1 year of a visual and performing art, and 1 year of a college prep elective. So that's what helps you satisfy the A through G subject requirement. But then connected to that is your performance in these A through G subjects, meaning your GPA. So we also have a GPA requirement. You must earn a minimum GPA of 3.0 in all A through G courses for you to be eligible to submit an application to the UC system. Again, this 3.0 GPA is a minimum. We definitely see higher GPAs, but you must know that to even just submit an application, you must have a 3.0 minimum GPA in your A through G subjects. Now, we calculate your GPA on all of your sophomore and junior year A through G courses, and we also include in that GPA courses completed in summers after 9th grade, the summer after 10th grade, and the summer after 11th grade. So please make a note of that. We calculate your GPA on your sophomore and junior year, and that includes the summers completed after 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. Go Bears. All right, a little bit about selection. Campuses use multiple factors when selecting students. The way in which campuses select students varies, and it is to the student's advantage to include as much information as possible on the application. Of course, we want as much accurate information. Admission representatives want to know about the experiences, accomplishments, and the challenges of every applicant. Students should feel free to discuss roles and responsibilities at work. Some of you work, or in your community service. Some of you may be doing volunteer work in your community. We want you also to share your stories in your personal insight question responses. And we want you to talk about your educational journey. This is because every student is considered in the context of your very own environment, which can include, but is not limited to, your high school, your family home life, and even your geographical region in California. We want to learn about those contexts. So the more information you give us that's accurate on your application, and the more information you also give us in the complimentary section of the personal insight question responses, the better we can get a sense of how you navigate your worlds. Your worlds are your high school, your worlds are your community, and your world is also your family, your home life. We want to get a good, clear sense of that, and these are the ways you can do it. Also, students are considered within the context of your of the applicant pool, and that's something that many students don't take into account, and parents, adults, don't take into account. That we also take into account the applicant pool that you are applying alongside with, and as you may imagine, the applicant pool changes every year. It can change every year. So the senior class at your high school is not the same senior class for next year. So that right there changes the applicant pool. So we just want to drop that in your thinking that we also look within the context of the applicant pool you're applying to in this year. Also, each campus will complete their individual review of the application, of your application, independently of one another. So what that means is that the campuses are going to review the information in the UC application and select students without asking other UC campuses what they have decided about your UC application. In other words, or for example, UC San Diego will not call UC Irvine and ask, have you decided on Juan? What's Juan doing? Are you admitting Juan? That's not the way the UC campuses work, All right, because that's a common question that a lot of people like Karen and Emmanuel get, is they get that question, will UC Berkeley call UCLA? And no, the UC campuses do not communicate in this manner. Each campus selects their students independently, and I need parents in the audience, and I need students to understand that. Go Bears. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about comprehensive review. To me, it's kind of surprising that many students, seniors, applicants to UC, parents don't know what comprehensive review is or have not heard about this. But comprehensive review, that is the official undergraduate admissions policy. The criteria for this policy includes academic achievement, personal and school context, special talent, life challenges, special circumstances. But more specifically, there are 14 factors that make up comprehensive review. And that includes, in no particular order, these following 14 factors: grade point average, test scores if submitted, courses completed or courses planned in the senior year that you find yourself right now, any honors courses. Perhaps some of you are in your top 9 local context or ELC. That's also taken into consideration as part of comprehensive review. Campuses also look at the quality of the senior year program of study. They also take into consideration academic opportunities in your high school that are available to you, your performance in academic subject areas, any achievements in special projects, improvement in academic performance, any special talents, achievements, and awards you may have fulfilled, achieved. Also, participation you may have or you may have had in any educational preparation program. And the last two, academic accomplishment within your life experiences. And UC admissions campuses also look into, if they wish to, geographic location. Those 14 factors is what makes up the comprehensive review admissions policy. Campuses will also look at a student's achievements within the context of their educational environment and the resources and opportunities that are available to them. Go Bears. All right, that's a lovely picture. Go Bears. All right, here's another snapshot of the application. So let's move forward. Go Bears. All right, so when you create your account, we definitely want to stress, I want to stress to you that you will continue to use this email throughout the UC application process. So make sure you choose an email that you use frequently. Also, when you create your password on the application for UC, keep your password secure. It must also include an upper and lower case letters, a number, and a special character. So please pay attention to the screens, because it'll give you strict instructions like this on how to create your passwords. Go Bears. Okay, now in creating your application, I do want to say that new users must enter a unique email address and password. Students should use an email account they will check after graduation from high school. So please avoid using your own high school email address, because in some cases, your high school will not permit you to use that email address after you've graduated. So again, avoid using a school issued email address. Applicants will use the same account if you apply it in the future. Also, if the student family has multiple applicants, or if there are future applicants, different email addresses should be used by each UC applicant. Also, you want to review the statement of integrity before starting the application. It is a real thing. It ties into what I mentioned earlier about you want to enter accurate information, and remember that honesty is the best policy. Make sure, again, you review majors before you start your UC application. And when you log in, first-time users, you start by clicking New Account. And when you return to your UC application, you simply enter your email and your password information under Sign In. Now, on this slide right here, I want to stress to you the level. You definitely want to choose, first of all, the fall quarter semester. All of you are going to apply for the fall quarter semester of 2021. So make sure you click this radio button right here that says fall quarter semester 2021. Also, since all of you here, I'm assuming there are high school seniors, you're going to select freshman as your application level. I am currently in high school. I am applying for freshman status. Do not choose transfer, do not choose other, because that will set up a whole different scenario for you, and we don't want you getting lost in a different scenario. So make sure you select these radio buttons of fall quarter semester and freshman. Go Bears. Oh, lovely picture. I think that looks like UC Santa Cruz. Go Bears. All right, the navigation bar, for those of you who have not had a chance yet to check out the application, you can see here on the right, this navigation will be present. Students can complete the application in any order. So some of you may say, you know what, I'm gonna jump straight to my household information, or I'm gonna jump over to academic history. So now you know that you can complete it in any order you wish. All right, let's go forward, go Bears. All right, about you is going to start with personal information. So what is your name? So something I do want to share here is make sure that this information is reflecting your legal documents as presented on your legal documents, on official documents. You want to keep your names consistent. And also another reminder, keep this name consistent with any financial aid forms you're filling out. For example, the FAFSA application. So I can't stress enough keeping your name consistent on all the applications you will be filling out very soon. Go Bears. All right. This question brings up a lot of questions for folks. I'm going to mention here, citizenship. Applicants must select a country of citizenship from the country drop-down menu. And you can see that right here. There's a drop-down menu. You select your country. Those who choose a country other than the United States will have follow-up questions pop up regarding your permanent residency and or visa status. Now, a special note for my undocumented siblings out there who are considering applying to UC, for your country of citizenship, you're going to select no selection. So when you click on this country arrow here, you're going to choose no selection and you'll follow the directions for the Social Security number below. And then the next section, which asks about Social Security, all applicants who have a Social Security number are required to enter it. Again, if you have a valid Social Security number, you must enter it. For those of you who may be of DACA status and who are undocumented students, you enter a valid Social Security number or a Social Security number for work purposes or an ITIN, I-T-I-N, if available. If you don't have any of those, you just leave it blank. Again, if an applicant does not have a valid Social Security number, you can skip that item. You can skip that question. We use the Social Security number to accurately and reliably merge test scores if submitted. Okay, go Bears. All right, about your household. A couple of notes here regarding family size and income. Information about a student's parents and legal guardian's education, income, and family size is used to provide contextual information about the home environment, and critically is to help determine eligibility for the application fee waiver. Go Bears. Okay, about your parents. Now, keep in mind that sometimes parents are hesitant to share information about themselves. It's optional, however, it's highly encouraged they share this information because it gives the admissions offices more context about your home environment, who's with you in your home, in your household, and that gives us more information about what your home life may be. So the more information you provide us, the better of a picture, of a sharper picture we get of various contexts of your life. Go Bears. A lovely picture, go Bears, that's UC Merced. All right, now we're talking about campuses and majors. I'm going to stress again, please do your research on the campuses and the majors. One thing I want to state and emphasize is that a lot of UC applicants are not aware that a UC campus, first of all, it's a university, it's pretty large, but the universities, each UC campus is made up of different schools and colleges. So if you don't do the research on your majors, you're not going to understand that every single college is different and every single college offers different majors. So students get confused when they go to UC Berkeley and they say, wait a minute, I'm applying to UC Berkeley, but it's asking me about a college. I don't get that. So please consult with a college counselor or a trusted individual about selecting your major, looking into the different colleges and schools within each UC campus, all right? So go Bears. We're gonna move forward in the interest of time. Go Bears. Go Bears. Some universities, some UC campuses will allow you to choose an alternate major. So if you are asked to choose an alternate major, please select an alternate major. Do not leave it blank. You will choose this along with a major. Okay, go Bears. For those of you applying to UC San Diego, there's a special step you have to take where you have to rank the UC San Diego colleges. And I just mentioned earlier that the UC campuses are universities, but they're also broken down into colleges or schools. For UC San Diego in particular, you're being asked to rank the colleges. So do your researches Do your research on those majors and those colleges, especially for UC San Diego. And I want to throw in a special note for UC Santa Cruz as well. Go Bears. A lovely picture. Go Bears. All right. Let's move forward in the interest of time. Go Bears. You will be asked about any seventh or eighth grade classes you may have completed regarding mathematics or language other than English. Make sure you put down the high school you're attending and high schools you've attended in the past. Go Bears. It's also going to ask you information about, well, what high school did you attend? What is the grading system? What is the term system? And also there's a lot of questions right now for you perhaps about, well, we're in this weird system because of sheltering in place and virtual study and so on. So you may have questions about how to report your grades, no passes, credits, etc. We're going to have you ask, I'm going to ask you to turn to your trusted college advisor or other support person that can help you with those specific questions. Moving forward, go Bears. Here we are with an example of academic history that you're reporting, self-reporting in 11th grade. You're going to self-report 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, including any courses you may have taken at a community college. So remember to report accurate information. Be careful when you make your selections, especially with grades. You don't want to pick an F when you meant to pick an A. So be very mindful of when you make your course selections, when you make your grade selections. Go Bears, move forward. All right, we're going to move forward in the interest of time. Remember, you're entering coursework manually. So again, what I said just earlier, be very careful, take your time. There is no rush in this section, especially in this section. You want to be very mindful. You want to take your time because you're inputting information on your own and you want to put the correct classes, courses, and you want to put the correct grades as well. Moving forward, go Bears. All right, here is where you can put information about the colleges you may have attended while you're in high school. So some of you may have been taking classes at City College or Skyline, etc. You get the opportunity here to add that information. Go Bears. Go Bears. That's just where you would find that college. This one right here, this box you will find in this section is called the additional comments box. You are welcome to make any kind of comments in this box. Don't make this an essay. It's not a space for an essay or for a personal insight question. It's just a space for you to put some quick information that will help us in the admissions offices understand your academic context a little bit better. So don't hesitate to use it. It's available for you to use. So if there's some information that you think it's important for us to know about your academic history, your academic experiences, classes, grades, your school, you can put it in here. Go Bears. Lovely picture. Move forward. Go Bears. All right, now for test scores. I'm going to spend maybe a minute here on this one. Information is still quickly moving. So even though I may share this out with you right now and information you may perhaps have heard yesterday even, it's all subject to change. So I just want to put that out there because we have a lot of moving pieces right now. But for the fall 2021 and 2022, submitting scores is optional for students. Campuses may consider scores as part of comprehensive review. The keyword there is may. So I'm going to suggest to all of you UC applicants out there is to connect with your UC campus of interest and ask them, do you encourage me to submit my scores or not? And see what UC Riverside says, see what UC Merced tells you. So I want you to ask the UC campus's reps directly what their suggestion is to you regarding the submission of test scores. Moving forward for the fall 2023 and 2024, campuses cannot consider scores in selection for students attending California high schools. And for fall 2025 and beyond, there's hopefully going to be a new test or the complete elimination of standardized tests altogether. So even though you see this presented by me right now, it's all subject to change. I'm going to again stress, speak directly to a UC rep via a webinar because a lot of them are offering webinars online such as this right now, and ask them, what do you suggest for me to submit my scores or not for you, UC Santa Barbara? Go Bears. All right, let's move forward. Go Bears. Go Bears. All right. AP exams, I do want to share here with you that if you have any AP exams planned or completed, please check yes there, click that radio button, and you will report that information. So you can definitely still report AP exam results. Go Bears. A lovely picture. I believe that's UC Santa Barbara. Go Bears. All right, there's going to be a section of activities and awards, and this is where you're going to get your brag sheet or your resume out. And be careful, spend time. Don't be messy or sloppy here, because you should definitely be careful in inputting this information about awards, activities, programs that you've been involved with. Go Bears. Let's move forward. And let's move forward. It's going to ask you information such as how long have you been involved, how many hours, what grade levels. So be prepared to have that information ready. The UC application is also a scholarship application. So there's a section here that you see that's going to give you information on selecting the various UC applications. Now with that, I want to pause and ask my lovely hosts if we should cut now or move forward to the next speaker.
You still have over 5 minutes.
All right, fantastic, Karen, for gifting me over 5 minutes. Let's move forward, go Bears. And just once again, to echo what my fine colleagues have mentioned, these presentations will be made available to you, so you can definitely review them and go over them at your leisure. All right, now a little bit about the PIQs, or what we also know as the personal insight question. Just note that each question aligns to one or more of the 14 comprehensive review factors I reviewed with you earlier. Campuses consider these PIQs, personal insight question responses, in their admissions decisions. Now, first-year students must choose 4 out of the 8 questions. Keep in mind that you have a maximum of 350 words for each response. And I want to definitely stress this to you all. All questions have equal value. There is no advantage or disadvantage to choosing certain questions over others. Ever since the personal insight questions debuted about 5 years or so ago, students try to calculate saying, okay, I'm going to choose PIQ 8 because it sounds really, really impressive and important. So it sounds really, really impressive. So I'm going to answer PIQ 8. No, just choose the 4 PIQ questions that are most relevant to you, that you respond to the most, because they're equal value. So definitely don't fall into that trap of thinking that because this PIQ sounds kind of important, or sounds kind of fancy, or it sounds hard, I'm going to answer that one because I'm going to impress UC Santa Barbara. It's all equal weight. So please don't cause yourself that unnecessary stress by trying to figure out which one sounds important. They're all important and they all have equal weight. Go Bears. All right, here we are, more about the personal insight questions. Again, you're going to select 4. Choose the 4 that most resonate with you. Please avoid the trap of doing the 4 that your best friend is doing, or doing the 4 that your partner is doing, or worse, doing the 4 that your parent recommended you choose, or is making you choose. These have to be 4 choices that are your own, because we're talking about your own personal story. So you want to choose the 4 PIQs that most resonate with you, that allows you to tell your personal story in the most authentic and genuine way possible. So please choose the 4 questions that are most relevant to you. Go Bears. Okay, there's also an additional comments box in this section for the PIQs. It is not intended for you to provide a 5th PIQ. Let me stress that again. That section, that additional comments box, is not intended for an additional PIQ. However, you are welcome to provide additional information. So
I wanted
just
to
keep that in mind.
interject in here, Angel Max. There was
Yes,
a
please.
question about using bullet points for either this additional comments or additional information section. Could you speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Karen, for that. That's a fantastic point. So thank you to that scholar out there who brought that up. You can introduce talking points, or as we commonly know as bullet points. You can do that. That is welcome. That is accepted. But the point is not to make it an essay. Besides, they limit you to 550 characters, not words, characters. So it's going to be very brief. And so that allows space for like a quick bullet point, a couple quick, maybe 1 or 2, 3 sentences, but that's it. It's not meant to be an essay. It's not meant to be a way for you to sneak in another PIQ, but you can still provide information to us. And I want to stress this point. Hopefully you're providing information that's new information that we haven't read in the rest of the application up until this point. So thank you, Karen, and thank you to that scholar who presented the question. Go Bears. A lovely picture, go Bears. All right, now we're getting to the end and bringing it home because Miss Karen has been more than generous to give me those 5 minutes, which I'm sure we're now looking at maybe 2 minutes. We're now entering the review and submit. You'll see right here in this oval, it's showing you the sections with the check mark. Those are sections that have been completely done. They're completed. But there's this one section in this example that has no check mark. That means you have to return to the academic history section and finish that section. When you do that, you will get a check mark in that section as well. Go Bears. All right, it's going to allow you to review what you've submitted. You can review and you can make corrections on the application that you have provided self-reported information. So make sure you also review the application thoroughly before you submit it. Go Bears. All right, we do have what's called an A through G subject requirement counter. In this example, you can see that the student is missing 2 more years of mathematics, and that's why they have only 1. And for science, they're missing a year there as well for science. So it's going to ask you to go back to that section and fill in what you are missing for your subject requirements, because again, you need to have these subject requirements to be eligible to apply. Go Bears. So it will tell you about missing information. All right, keep in mind, it costs $70 to apply to one UC campus. So it will calculate for you how much you have to pay. Some of you may be eligible for a UC application fee waiver. That's why it's very important to put in accurate information about your family size and income earlier in the application. So be very careful with that. And you will be told automatically if you are eligible for the UC application or not. Some of you may be eligible for the College Board SAT fee waiver applications, so that may be an option for you to use as well. Move forward, go Bears. Lovely picture of people working out. That's UCLA. And then you get to the end here. This box right here is showing you your application ID number, the date it was submitted, and the way you chose to pay for your UC application. So take a picture of that. Make sure you note the application ID number. Go Bears. And as I bring it down to a close, we're going to close the application process by having you sign a statement of integrity. And you also have to click boxes on release authorizations. And you'll get to explore that later on yourself, of what those authorizations are about. Go Bears. Okay, and then it's just a recap of your application status. You can make limited changes to your application after you submit it. You'll receive those instructions at the end when you submit. Go Bears. And then the last screen that will present itself after you submit your application is a bunch of hotline numbers that you can call if you need help with your UC application. And with that, I'd like to conclude this presentation and turn it back over to my lovely host, Karen Emanuel. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, AM. I did want to field a question that came up multiple times in the box here. Thank you so much to everyone for submitting. I want to encourage everyone to keep doing so throughout the presentation. There were a lot of questions about AP exams. Should we only report ones that are 3+? Is it bad to report ones that are less? So just thinking about if a student reports a 1 or a 2 that they've gotten on an AP exam, does that really harm them?
All right.
A lot of the different questions that came through about that. And then the other question that I did want to field before we transition to the next session is about applying to a school with a specific major if that harms you. So those are the 2 that we'll tackle right now.
All right, let's tackle this. Thank you, Karen. And thank you, scholars, for that question. The first one I want to talk about is yes. By all means, I highly encourage you to report any and all AP exam scores. And here's the reason, for me at least. You take the AP course, and you also are going to report the grades for those AP courses you may have completed in 10th grade and 11th grade. In the future, later on, you'll report we will see in your final transcript that's sent to the UC campus that admitted you, we will see your final grades for AP classes in your senior year. Now, the AP experience is not just the class. The AP experience also includes the exam. So we like to see the fact that you, 1, completed the course, hopefully with passing grades, C or better, but 2, we also hope that you've completed the entire AP process and experience of taking the exam. Now, whether or not you get a passing grade of 3 or higher, that only really impacts whether you are going to be granted college credits for the UC campus that you enroll in. So even if you do receive a 1 score or a 2 score, that would be viewed as neutral information. It's not going to harm you. It is not going to harm you. Scores of 1 or 2 will be viewed neutrally. And of course, for scores that are grades of 3, 4, 5, those will be considered what we call added value. And then we will work with those scores in a separate process about possibly looking into giving you college credit at your UC campus. That's a separate process after the admissions process. So no, it does not harm you to report your AP exam. One, the first reason being that it shows you engaged and you completed the entire AP process of taking the course, finishing the course, and taking the exam. And two, if you did get a passing score, then great, it looks great for you, and you may possibly get some college credit at a UC campus. But if you got a 1 or a 2, it doesn't harm you. We will look at that as just neutral information, but it also shows that you went through the entire AP experience and the AP process. Now, the
Thank you
question
so
number
much,
2.
Angel Max.
Karen, how's
Second
question number 2?
question was, and this applies to many different schools, does applying as different majors to different schools or colleges harm your chance of acceptance?
So applying to a specific type of major?
Correct. So if
Okay.
I'm applying to UC Berkeley and I specifically want to apply for computer engineering, will I have a higher chance if I go undeclared?
All right, wow. Now this is a very loaded question, which I will not have enough time to get to. So I'm just gonna go back to my message from earlier, which is I need you each to spend specific dedicated time researching your majors. Connected to that, you have to research where does the major that you're interested in live? If you're looking at UC Berkeley, for example, does your major live in the College of Engineering, or does the major you're interested in live in the College of Chemistry, or does the major you're interested in live in the College of Natural Resources, or does it live in the College of Letters and Science? You get the picture. You have to do your research about the university itself. You have to research the different colleges and schools that make up that UC campus. And then you look at the major that lives in each of those different schools and colleges. So if this is the first time you're hearing anyone talk to you about colleges, schools, programs, departments within a UC campus, that means you have not done your research yet. So I'm gonna just stop right here and say, go to your school counselor, turn to trusted folks like Karen or Emmanuel, and ask them to go over with you how to begin researching your majors, because that's going to impact the question that was presented right now about your chances or your eligibility for it. We can't even begin to start answering that kind of thing until you do your research about the majors.
Well, thank you so much for your expertise and for joining us today, Angel Max. We really appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you, and go UC.
We're going to switch gears now, and we're going to invite the next two speakers that we have. We have Valerie Grace Emeline and Renee Stevens from San Francisco State. Handing it over to the two of you.
Cool. Thank you so much for having us, everyone. My name is Valerie Grace. I am an outreach specialist here at San Francisco State University. I know I look like a student. Thank you so much. I get that all the time. I'm actually pro staff. I've worked on campus for about 3 years now, and I'm absolutely in love with the campus, and I'm so proud to be a staff Gator. And then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague who'll be joining me today.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for being here. We're really excited for your presence. Your presence, just really shows us that you care, that you're motivated, that you're excited to be here in these very challenging times. I'm a proud San Francisco State alumni and staff and EOP, so I'm excited to be here and excited for all of you to share our information about CSU.
And so today we're going to be giving you a little bit of an overview about the CSU system. We get to brag about how awesome all 23 campuses are. And then we'll really start talking about the admissions part, as well as a little bit more about the Cal State application in the second half of this. Okay, so if you just bear with us, we're going to get through as much information as we possibly can. So let's start off with the next slide. All right, so something to think about for anyone, whatever institution that you're interested in, you want to go to college, you always have to think about these things that you can see on the slide. I won't mention all of them, but something to consider is the cost, the majors, if there's on-campus housing, the campus life, right? Are you going to be able to see yourself as part of this community that you're interested in attending? We're gonna go ahead and go on to the next slide. I wanna kind of power through some of these, y'all, I'm sorry. Now, the CSU system is the largest public school system in the nation. We are 23 wonderful, amazing campuses. We're diverse, we're affordable. We really focus on hands-on learning. We want to make sure that the students are able to get jobs right after they graduate. So we want to make sure to give them the experiences that they need in their careers as a student. That way they can put it into their resume. And we really do serve so many students up and down California, and in fact, all over the nation, and a bunch of international students as well. I'm going to go ahead and move on over to the next slide. This is a map, just like you saw with the CSU, with the UC system. This is a map of the CSU systems. Like I said, there's 23 of us. We go all the way up north to Humboldt and all the way down south to San Diego, with lots and lots of institutions in between. So remember when I told you all about, you have to think about the location when you're choosing an institution. Location matters, right? We have wine country, which is Sonoma. We have the ocean, which is right by Long Beach. If you want to go to an institution in a large city, San Jose State is a great institution for that. So please make sure that you are looking into the institutions and where they are, because that will help make your decision to decide whether a CSU or UC or whatever institution you're looking at will be right for you. We can go on over to the next slide. Size matters as well. There's lots and lots of different sizes of institutions all over the CSU system. We have small campuses that range to between maybe around 7,000 students per campus. I was a graduate of CSU Monterey Bay, so I opted for a really small campus. I was like, I'm nervous around lots of people, so let's stick to the small campus, which is exactly what I needed as a student. There are some students who are going to want a larger campus, right? You have San Jose with 33,000 and Fullerton with close to 40,000 students. So if you're into that and you're like, I want all the people all the time, let's do this, definitely go for a larger campus. If you're looking for something a little bit more in between, we have campuses like East Bay, San Bernardino, and San Luis Obispo. Just a fun fact, San Francisco State is going to be considered one of the larger campuses with about 26,000 students currently attending. And we're going to move on to the next slide. And this is actually the part where I get to let my colleague take over. Go ahead, Renee.
The way that CSUs were designed were for the teachers, the nurses, the before you're heading into a doctoral program. So the community colleges were for more technical apprentice work versus vocational, versus the CSUs were really designed to help middle like management, teachers, etc. But really, it completely depends on the institution, which school you pick, because you can really do whatever you want. So for example, I'm going to keep talking about San Francisco State, but we have a really strong cinema department. Our cinema department is compared to one of the top 20 in the nation. So we're compared with UCLA, with USC, with NYU for cinema. Radio and TV, that's another one. We're really strong for radio and television. So it completely depends. What our previous colleague had said about picking the major, whatever you decide is going to be the best major. Of course, it's really hard to just pick on a major, and students often change their majors a lot. But what I can tell you, regardless where you decide to attend college, the first 2 years are always the hardest, because you're essentially you're taking similar courses that you took in high school. It's just that they're more advanced in their college level. So the first 2 years, whether it's at a community college, private school, a UC, or a CSU, you're going through so many changes, meeting so many different people. The first 2 years are the hardest. The good news is once you secure a major, then it keeps getting easier. So the higher you go, your bachelor's, your master's, PhD, the easier it gets, because then you're going to be surrounding yourself with folks who you have similar interests with, right? With your classmates and your instructors. Also, find out what your instructor's strengths are. All of that information is available through the department, specifically through their websites where they have information about each of the instructors. So really, I mean, CSUs also allow you to do a special major where you can create your own. So you can study honestly whatever you want. And ultimately, what we cater to is specifically getting a bachelor's and master's degrees. That is our strengths. Next slide, go Gators. Life at the CSU. So, you know, I wasn't surprised. I know it's hard this year that y'all are having to be at home, but you know, each institution is so different. What I suggest is please, please, please visit the campus. I'm amazed at how many students don't visit the campus and then just show up on the first day. I highly recommend visiting the campus. It's a feeling that you have. And with campuses closed now, this is the best time to go. How does it make you feel? What's close by? You know, and this is a real simple explanation, but I was choosing between San Francisco State and Cal Poly, and it was a feeling that I had with San Francisco State. I really loved the city and I loved the urban environment and people wearing black. I mean, that was just very different versus, and there was so much diversity. That's also something that's a strength of San Francisco State, is you're going to find at the CSUs, I really believe, I know other campuses are trying, but, and I know the UCs are trying, but you're going to find a lot more diversity at the CSU. That's just where we are. Get a job on campus. That's the best way to learn to have a home base at the campus. And you know what, ultimately, I know people think I'm crazy when I say this, but I always say, do not let money be a factor. You can't let money be a factor. Yes, we're more affordable, absolutely. But your education, you can't put a price on that. Especially when you're the first person in your family. You're opening so many doors that that you don't even can envision of what that means to your family. So all of our campuses will all get involved with associated students. That's really huge. There's so many of our campuses have so many student groups, and having that connection with a group, it's like you have your support network that help you move forward through your time there and afterwards, because you're networking. Let's see, leadership development. These are all really great. You have to get involved. That's really important. And the best way to get involved is student life, jobs on campus. For students that are lucky to live on campus, sometimes it can be isolating when you live on campus. Sometimes you actually could get more out of it by living at home, and then the days that you do go to campus, you're there. And then you want to schedule your time for being there. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of attention is given to student life living on campus, but don't knock it. You'd be amazed at how many, especially a lot of our campuses are commuter based. And ultimately it's what you put into it and it's what you'll get out of it, right? Next slide, please. Campus resources. Everything that you need is available on campus. Absolutely. We're talking groceries, our health center, I call them the fancy gym, but the wellness center. Everything that you need, tutoring, as part of EOP, we have our own tutoring center, but all campuses have a tutoring center. Students often think of tutoring as a punishment. It's not a punishment. tutoring is actually how good students become even better students. Career Center, all of our campuses will have a strong Career Center. And don't wait till your last semester before you graduate to visit the Career Center. Go early. Our Career Center is now called Career Center and Leadership Development because we promote it to incoming students. But really everything that you need is our campuses, college campuses are like little cities, really, and everything that you need is available to you. I can guarantee you. Next slide. Oh, it's hard because I haven't I haven't attended a UC, so I'm super CSU. But one thing that I will say is I had no idea that my attending the CSU then opened the doors for my nieces, my nephews. So many of us then ended up going to the CSU, and the other advantage of CSUs is we specifically when you have a special characteristic of each CSU. So one of the things that's also San Francisco State, I know I keep referring to us, that's really advantageous is we have 3 things that are really our strengths. One is our College of Ethnic Studies, which then includes a lot of community service and working in for nonprofit agencies, for example. And then also because it's San Francisco, we have a really strong study abroad. So not only do we have a really strong international student population, but we also have a really strong study abroad where our students can travel the world and ironically save money because San Francisco is so expensive that when you go to other parts of the world, I've heard stories of students actually saving money to travel to study abroad. Next slide, please.
And then I'll go ahead and take over from here for Renee. Really quick though, I did have one of our students who worked on our in our office, went to go study abroad in Korea, and she ended up paying the same amount she would for a single room here in San Francisco. And in Korea, she paid for a 2-bedroom house, which is really nice. And that included like groceries and electricities. Like she even had extra money to spend on whatever she wants. So he's definitely right. You can save money by studying abroad, which kind of is a wild thought, but it is true. Renee did talk a little bit about like life in the CSU. She had some great information about resources. We also have sports available for students as well. So if you are a big football fan, right, you're a football player, awesome quarterback. Fresno State Go Bulldogs has a great football team. San Jose State as well. They are Division I schools, so they do get televised. So if you want to be on TV, hey. Campuses like San Francisco State, San Marcos, Chicos, we are Division II schools. The difference between us is really they're televised. We're not. We're still just as competitive. And we have a bunch of sports, including so like football, basketball, soccer, golf, right? All of these different sports. And they're amazing because not only do they allow students to be physically competitive, but they also really help students continue to be academically competitive as well. A lot of our sports students, a lot of our athletes are on the dean's list, right? They have 3.5 GPAs. They really go to tutoring because that's a kind of community they built along with their teammates, which is amazing. And then if we can keep moving forward to the next slide, living on campus. Once again, Renee did talk about living on campus. Benefits is you're already on campus. If you live on campus, you can wake up 10 minutes before class and then take 5 minutes to walk to your next class, right? Super easy, super fun, but I'll admit, my freshman year, I lived on campus at CSUMB. And even though my class was only a 5-minute walk away, there was multiple times where I was unfortunately late because I slept in a little bit too long, got a little bit lazy, got a little bit too comfortable in my bed. So even though living on campus is great, they have We have themed halls in San Francisco State. They have extra academic support. You have you have more spaces to build community with other folks who live in the same building as you. It's really great, but it depends on you as a student as well. Cost is definitely something to think about. There are some campuses that have, we all have varying housing costs. Sometimes it's cheaper to live off campus than on campus, and it helps you keep you, what's the word for it? Responsible about your time that you spend on campus, which is something really important to think about as well. And that's a little bit about our campuses. We both have different ways of presenting, but we all really have the same theme around this: is choose the campus that's right for you, right? Choose the CSU that's right for you, and really do your research. Before we move on to how to get into a CSU, do we have any questions that we want to address from the chat, from the Q&A?
Thanks for pausing. We actually don't have any questions right now. So I do want to recommend that if anybody has, I know y'all are doing a great job of being detailed about all the different things that are available with the CS.
Thank you.
But if there's something that you do have a question about, put it in the chat, and either I myself will just field it right away, or we'll interject here with our presenters. Thank you.
All right, perfect. See, Renee, we're doing an amazing job. Thank you so much. If we can go on to the next slide, we'll actually talk about how to be admitted into the CSU. So just like the UC system, the CSU system has the same minimum requirements throughout all 23 CSUs. And for fall 2021, spring 2022, we have made slight changes in order to accommodate students being affected by the pandemic. So one, everyone needs to graduate from high school. If y'all are seniors right now, you're so close, just go ahead and finish the senior year strong. You got this, we believe in you. Two, all students must meet the A through G courses, take and pass those with a C- or better. We do not count D, so you're aiming for a C- or better. If you also want to be eligible for the UC system, really you're aiming for Bs and better as well. Our minimum GPA is slightly lower than the UCs. We're looking for a 2.5 GPA with your A through Gs. If you're between a 2.0 and a 2.49, you can still be accepted, but each campus is going to have supplemental criteria they'll be looking at to help determine admission. So for example, sometimes it could be they'll look at the types of courses you're taking. Are you taking any AP courses, right? Some institutions will be looking at whether or not you have a job, whether or not you did any community service work. Supplemental criteria will vary depending on each CSU. So whatever CSU you're interested in applying for or are looking into, make sure you're checking in with that. If you're a senior, if you are a junior or sophomore, you have friends that are younger than you, just know this might change, and we might go back to our original standards for requirements, which is a minimum 2.0 GPA and an eligibility index based on their SAT or ACT scores. Now, I acknowledge I didn't say anything about SAT, ACT scores for our seniors this year. That's because you do not need them. Yay! If you have test anxiety, I got you. You don't have to take any tests or pass them or anything like that. Don't even worry about it. We're not going to be looking at that for the CSU system. Freshman requirements.
So huge. I'm sorry. That is so huge. Yay.
It's really great. And I'm so excited for students.
Something good coming out of 2020. Okay.
So you're really aiming for those A through Gs graduating from high school. And just to make it easier for y'all, aim for that 2.5 or above, or even aim for that 3.0 or above. That way you can be both eligible for the CSU system and the UC system. These are minimum requirements that are specifically for our non-impacted institutions and majors, and I have more information about impaction later on. We can move on to the next slide. We're going to power through this. Oh, that's my campus right there, CSU Monterey Bay. The slide is a little bit weird, but these are going to be your A through G requirements. We're going to just say hello to them. We already talked about it when we had the UC presentation. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. It's the same as the UC requirements. This is specifically for San Francisco State. We are allowing lower division transfer students. So let's say you're in high school right now, you want to take a couple semesters at a community college before you transfer into a CSU. For San Francisco State, you can do that. That means you've taken 60 or less transferable semester units, or if you went to a quarter school, it's 90 or less quarter units. It's basically, you should have been eligible out of high school. have your A2 and B4. It's basically your first semester of writing in a math course and a minimum transferable GPA of a 2.0. Do we have any questions?
Yes, so since you're talking about transferring a community college, there was someone that submitted a question saying, if we go to a community college for 2 years, can we still study abroad?
Ooh,
Absolutely.
great question. Yes, you definitely can. In fact, if you're able to contact our Office of International Programs, like while you're in the process of applying, I think they have a program where you're even during your first semester at San Francisco State, after transferring, you could already be studying abroad. It's pretty cool. Fun fact about studying abroad, zoology students can now go study in Antarctica. I mean, I think that's pretty cool. It's pretty cold out there, but it's worth it. Do you have any other questions, Karen, so far?
There's another question related to if CSUs are taking weighted or unweighted GPA.
Ooh, great question. We are taking weighted GPA. So if you are taking any AP courses, honors courses, we will give you that GPA bump for those. And when we calculate the high school GPA, we're looking at your 10th and 11th grade weighted GPA. Your 9th grade grades also do matter. Your A through G still need to be passed with a C- or better. But let's say you got pure C's your freshman year, you were trying to figure out high school, but then after you started getting A's and B's and your GPA is really high, that's kind of what we do. We will eventually look at your high school, your senior year GPA for a final admission decision, but for the application purposes, we're only looking at your 10th and 11th grade. Awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next slide. Now, transfer requirements for if you are an upper division transfer student, so that means this is gonna be applying to all CSUs. If you're taking or fulfilled 60 or more semester units or 90 or more quarter units, you can transfer into San Francisco State. You will need to have your A1, A2, A3, B4. We call these the golden 4 courses because they're super duper important. One of them is a speech course, another is a writing course, another is a critical thinking, which is typically if you're attending a community college in California, your second semester of writing, and then a college level math or quantitative reasoning course. So it can be like statistics, calculus, anything like that. We also need you to have a 2.0 GPA in order to be admissible as a transfer student. This is specifically for our non-impacted institutions, okay? Next slide. All right, so if you all are seniors right now, you're in high school, this might feel like a long time for now, so I'm just gonna touch on it really quick, like a little dip in the toes. If you decide to go to a community college, please, please, please look into an associate's degree for transfer because it'll help give you a pathway in order to transfer into the CSU system. It'll make sure that you're taking all the right courses and that once you do attend a CSU system, you're only doing your upper division major requirements and upper division general education requirements. It makes it easier to transfer into a CSU. That's the biggest thing.
And into your major specifically.
Yes, you do. For most institutions, you get priority to be admitted into their major. All right, we're gonna move on to our next slide. Perfect, so I did say impaction a couple of times. Impaction means there are more students trying to get into a major or an institution than there's room to fully accommodate everyone. So instead of letting anyone who meets our minimum requirements to be admitted, we need students to be a little bit more competitive. So for example, San Jose State is a very impacted institution. Instead of that 2.5 GPA in order to be admitted, what they're gonna be looking for is something higher, maybe a 3.0 depending on the major, 3.4, 3.45, anything like that. Institutions like San Francisco State though, we got you. As long as you meet our minimum requirements, you can be admissible to our institution. Impaction does not mean that that campus is better than everyone else. It just means that there are more students that are interested in applying there, then there is room to fully accommodate everyone. So just because an institution is not impacted doesn't mean it's not good. Just because an institution is impacted, that doesn't mean it's the best. It's just depends on the student and their interest, which is why it's really important to look at different factors that we mentioned earlier to decide whether or not you're interested in that institution. And then if we can move on to the next slide, I'm gonna power through this Cal State application slide because Angel Max, I want to thank you so much because you did most of the work for me when it comes to talking about the Cal State application. it's pretty recent, but the CSU application and the UC application are actually very, very similar. We have multiple slides. Oh, watch out. Yes, thank you so much. We have multiple sections of the application. We also, the information that students need to put in is also very similar. So if you're doing the UC application, when you start the CSU application, it's going to look very similar, okay? You do need to input all of your transcripts, your high school courses. If you took any community college courses or any college courses while you're in high school, you need to input that. You need to input your personal information, which includes your financial information from your parents, your biographical information. We're not requiring essays, so that's going to help the application kind of move a little bit quicker for you. But so we're not requiring essays for admissions purposes, but if you're interested in applying for EOP, which is the Educational Opportunity Programs within the CSU system, they will require you to submit a short answers. So they're not like full-on essays. Renee, did you want to talk just a little bit more about
Sure,
that?
they're just, thanks VG for doing a shout out for EOP. EOP is a program that's for first generation, meaning neither parent has a 4-year degree or higher. And we're at all the we're at some of the UCs, but we're at all the CSUs. And some community and all the community colleges and in a similar program. Again, it's a program that's for first generation, neither parent has a degree or college degree or higher, and meet the income requirements, which is generally Pell Grant. They're just short answer prompt questions. 6, why do you want to attend college? They're helpful also because they're going to be foundational for any future scholarship that you apply for. And then it requires 2 recommenders, which is just a name and an email of an academic advisor.
That is going to be part of our Cal State application. So when you look at the application, you make your account, there'll be 4 different tiles. Your personal information, that's going to be all you. That's going to be pretty quick. You may need your parents' help on it when they're asking whether, like, how many years of school your parents have attended, their financial information, which is also really important. That financial information section is going to determine whether or not you will receive a fee waiver for the CSU system. So using that one application, you can apply to any 23 CSUs in our system, but each campus you will have to pay $70 to apply to each campus. If you qualify for the fee waiver, which is done completely through the application based on what you put in that financial information section, you can qualify to apply to 4 different institutions for free. It's $70 per application. So if you get that fee waiver, you're saving about $280, which is kind of nice. So you can do that. There's another section called academic history, which is where you're putting all of your coursework, your tests, your AP scores, AP, IB, CLEP. We do accept all of those. You can submit those test scores to us. Similar to what Angel Max had said, submit all your test scores to us. It's going to be helpful. It's not going to be bad if you didn't pass it. We're just going to have the scores. Your non-passing scores do not negatively affect your admissions decision. Then we'll have that supplemental section, which is going to be where you can apply for EOP, and then supplemental information, which is going to be more information about your majors. Once all of those become green, you can submit your application. Okay, and can we move on to the next slide? I'm going to kind of power through this because we're already going to have a whole presentation about financial aid. So how do you pay for college? Please apply for financial aid. This is kind of a little bit of a tuition comparison. California Community College is going to be the cheapest option for you. That does allow you to get your associate's degree, but if you're looking for a bachelor's or more, it's going to be the CSU, UC, or private independent institutions. CSUs being the most affordable, UCs, and then private or independent institutions. But remember, Renee said cost shouldn't be your main thing. That's what financial aid is for. That's what scholarships are for. And you're going to learn so much more about that later. I'm going to keep moving forward because we only have like 30 seconds left. Tips, please ask us questions. Don't just focus on those named schools, because smaller institutions, less known institutions can be just as great as those really known ones. And next one, pre-admissions advising, contact us. register for a tour. We have virtual tours available as well. If you're not comfortable physically being on a campus, do lots and lots of research. That's something you've heard both the CSU and the UCs during our presentations. And follow us on social media. Hey, we have pretty photos of our campuses too. And then next slide. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us. That's my direct email there. And if you are looking for Renee's email, you can always email me and I'll connect you with them. Thank you so much. And I think that's the end for me.
Thank you so much, Valerie, Grace, and Renee. Really appreciate you. There were a lot of different questions, and it seems that you were able to answer them throughout your presentation. For the sake of time, we're going to move on. Thank you so much for your expertise and your knowledge on everything. I actually went to San Francisco State, so big piece of my heart belongs there. We're going to switch gears now, and I want to introduce a colleague of mine. We have Rajan Quarto, who is the Senior College Affordability Advisor at UAspire. Rajan, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. What's up, y'all? Thank you for sticking around. I know y'all be learning a lot of good information, so definitely take your stretch break, get your water, get your snacks, do what you gotta do to be comfortable, and I'll close up for the night. So we can go to the next slide. Right, so my name is Rajan, she, her, they, them pronouns. I'm a Senior College Affordability Advisor at UAspire. So what I do is I advise around 1,000 students that come from the Bay Area, but they go to various schools around California and even around the nation. And tonight I'll be talking about the financial aid process. So pretty much just trying to teach y'all more about the money that could pay for your college and just like all the different expenses that come with college. So we can go to the next slide. So first, I just want to talk about UAspire. So we are a nonprofit organization that works with students and families across the nation. Specifically, we work in California, the Bay Area, Massachusetts, and New York. And our goal is to make college more affordable through training, policy, and advising work. So some things that we help students with is completing financial aid forms, figuring out which type of financial aid that students are eligible for based on their situation. And we also do virtual and in-person advising. Obviously not in person at this moment, but mainly virtual. And even before COVID-19, we were doing virtual advising through text message, but also through like video chat and email. And other than that, we do work with students throughout their senior year of high school into their first 2 years of college. So if you click next, I will share a little bit more about myself. So she, her, they, them pronouns. I was born and raised in Stockton, California. So that's in Central Valley. It's like an hour south of Sacramento, if you don't know. And for me, I got my bachelor's at UC Berkeley. I studied public health and Asian American studies. And go Bears. And outside of UAspire, I do teach ethnic studies in San Francisco through the Panay Pinoy Educational Partnerships. So shout out to PEP, and we can go to the next slide. And for tonight, I just want to make it clear what I will be going over. So definitely addressing what is financial aid, why is it important, why do you need it, how do you get financial aid, what are the different types of financial aid. So I'll definitely answer all those questions. And I'll also talk about the different types of financial aid applications, because based on your like citizenship status and then which type of institution you're applying to, you'll have to fill out different types of financial aid applications. So that's including FAFSA, DREAM Act, and CSS profile. And finally, I'll close up with some next steps around how you could prepare for financial aid applications in terms of the types of materials you'll need to gather. So go next. All right, cool. So just to start off, you should know that financial aid is money that can only be used for college and college expenses. So you can't take this money and use it to buy like an iPhone, for example. This is like solely intended for you to use for college and college expenses. So I'm talking about like tuition, fees, transportation, food, books, school supplies. And a way to think about it is think of like a gift card. You can only use it at a specific place. So for example, I can't roll up to Starbucks with like an In-N-Out gift card. They won't accept that, right? So think of financial aid in that way. It's very specific for college and college expenses. You go next. And financial aid is also a way to help lower the cost of college. So think of it as a discount. So if you know that you don't have to pay at the full price, then definitely apply for financial aid because it could bring down those costs. And most folks that get financial aid, they don't pay like the full price. So you just keep clicking next. I think I just got some graphics. Yep, you know, get them discounts, save you money. That's all financial aid. And finally, just know, similar to like the college applications, financial aid also has deadlines, and it's a process with many steps. So I want to compare it to like when you're applying for a job. You know, applying is not the only step. You also have to think about who are my references, got to do my research on this workspace and what this place is about, and just thinking about how do I prepare for the interview. So think of financial aid in a similar way when it comes to meeting all these different deadlines, and there's like a process beyond just applying. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, but there's a different application based on the colleges you're applying to and also your circumstances, which I will talk about more in a bit. Right, so going into the different types of financial aid, you can keep clicking next. Free is gonna be grants and scholarships, borrowed is loans, and then work study is earned. So with grants and scholarships, if you click next, this is money that is based on need, and it's free money that comes from different sources. So I'm talking about like the federal government, the state, or college funds. And an example, some of y'all might have heard of Cal Grant, which is based on GPA, is based on income, family size. So that's an example of like need-based aid. And there's also scholarships. So this could be merit or need-based as well. Again, this is all like free money that you can get from the college or you can get from outside scholarships. And we'll talk a little bit more about scholarships in another slide, but just know there's different sources for financial aid. And grants and scholarships are definitely the most popular type of financial aid, but loans and work study do count as financial aid. And with loans, this is borrowed money you eventually have to pay back. So you can get this from different sources, such as like the federal government, the state, private and college lenders. But just know when it comes to student loans that are offered from like the federal government, the state, or the college, those have like the most favorable interest rates and also payment plans. And I'm just going to differentiate between the two types of loans. So you have the subsidized loans or the unsubsidized loans. And the main difference is when the interest accrues. So with that, subsidized loans, the interest accrues when you are 6 months out of college. So that's whether you take like a break or if you graduate. And then with unsubsidized loans, the interest accrues immediately when you take it out. So a way to remember it is think of it like unsubsidized will make you unhappy because the interest accrues right away. So just know at the end of the day, if you need to take out loans, it's okay. And with the student loans that are being offered from like the government, the school, the state, those have the most favorable rates and payment plans. And finally, talking about work study, which was brought up in like the last presentation, but this is a way for you to earn money specifically through federal funds. And this is when you find a job on campus. And I recommend work study if you're eligible, just because it's much more flexible on student hours than if you get like an off-campus job. And that's just me talking from personal experience too. Like I remember my supervisor on campus, she let me work on homework when I was on shift. And I can't say the same for when I was working off campus, you know. But I think work study is also a good way to get connected with the resources and the staff on campus. And you can also develop like different skills in terms of if you want to do research or if you want to do like event planning, program management, all these different things. So if you're eligible for work study, I definitely recommend it. All right, so now I'm going to talk about California specific grants. So this is specific to the state. And first off, I'm going to talk about Cal Grant. So there's different types, but for this presentation, I'll talk about A and B. So you have to meet a certain GPA and income eligibility requirement. So for Cal Grant A, that's a 3.0 GPA minimum, and then Cal Grant B, that's a 2.0 GPA minimum. And the income eligibility varies based on, it varies each year. So if you click next, you could see that you could search up this information online. You can find these Cal Grant income ceiling charts if you just Google it. And just know with the Cal Grant, there is no additional applications needed. You just need to complete FAFSA or California Dream Act. And I'll talk more about those applications in the next slide. But yeah, other than that, with Cal Grant, just know like the amount you would get also will vary based on the institution you go to. So like a CSU versus a UC versus a private, the amounts will be different. And with the middle class scholarship, I'm just going to emphasize how I know a lot of the students and families I've worked with, they think because they don't have a certain income, they think they're not eligible for financial aid. But I think with the middle class scholarship, this is just a point to note that you can be eligible for this if you're attending a CSU or UC and your family has income and assets up to 184,000. So with that, just know you never know what financial aid you're eligible for. So definitely apply. And also if you're not sure if you're eligible for like this financial aid from the state or the government, you could be eligible for something from the school. So at the end of the day, I always recommend just apply, you never know. And same with Cal Grant, middle class scholarship does not require an additional application. You just have to do FAFSA or Dream Act. And for this last grant, I'm going to highlight the Shafee Grant. And this provides up to $5,000 annually to current and former foster youth. And this does require an additional application. And if you click next, you will complete this after you submit FAFSA or Dream Act. All right, so now we're going to talk about how do you get financial aid, like all these funds that I've been talking about, right? So we're going to start off with everything being in the student's senior year of high school. This is when you're going to complete and submit either the FAFSA or the Dream Act. So with FAFSA, really emphasizing this is a free application for federal student aid. So with that said, there's some orgs out there, or not orgs, websites out there like are trying to scam you and like it seems like they're FAFSA, but they're not. So just make sure you're on the right website. So if you click next, I'll have that on there. And just know that FAFSA is specifically for students that are US citizens and legal permanent residents. And you'll be getting financial aid, signing up for financial aid through FAFSA through that website. So make sure it's fafsa.ed.gov. And if you're not eligible for FAFSA, what's nice about California is we have the Dream Act application. I think just emphasizing this isn't something that's offered in like all of the states of the US, you know. And with the Dream Act application, this is specifically for students that are undocumented, maybe 540, DACA or U visa students. So you would go to caldreamact.org. And with that, just know that both of these applications, they open October 1st. That's going to be next week. And they will have the priority deadline of March 2nd. So just know that I emphasize just try to get it in as soon as possible, like before March 2nd. Don't try to do it like the night before because sometimes the system does crash and that's stressful, right? So you can click next. Other than FAFSA or Dream Act, just know that some private colleges may require additional forms such as CSS profile. So with that, you can find that list through collegeboard.org, and y'all should have your account set up with College Board since you'll be applying to different colleges. So that'll be like one less account to create, but just know not all private colleges require this. And what CSS profile is, it is another financial aid application that asks for just more information on your financial circumstances, because this is how some private colleges provide their like scholarships and grants to, to students. Okay, we can click next. So I just want to provide some examples of which apps you'd have to apply for based on the institution you go to. So usually this is like a guessing game. So maybe in y'all's head or like wherever you're at, you can think like, okay, is it, like, do I apply for FAFSA, Dream Act, CSS profile? For the first school, we have UC Berkeley. And if you click next, you just have to do FAFSA or Dream Act just because this is a public institution. And then we have Mills College, which is private, but this institution only requires FAFSA or Dream Act. You can keep clicking next, have some graphics. And then with Occidental College, it's another private school. but that does require CSS profile. So I think just really emphasizing, like with the private schools, depending on which institution you're looking at, some of them require CSS profile and some don't. And then finally with City College of SF, that just requires FAFSA and DREAM Act. And with that college, I just want to emphasize how even if you're going there, there's a lot of students that I've advised that think they don't have to apply for FAFSA or DREAM Act because Free City covers tuition and fees, or the Promise Grant covers tuition and fees. But just know there's still other expenses when it comes to college. So when we're talking about like school supplies, books, transportation, food, those are things that financial aid could help cover. So even if you're going to City College or another community college, definitely still apply because you could use that financial aid for other college costs. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So what information do you need when you're filling out these different applications? So before starting the 2021 to 2022 FAFSA DREAM Act, which opens next week, October 1st, you're gonna need the following information. So if applicable, a student permanent resident card. And other than that, for both the student and the parent, you'll need social security cards and numbers because the application will ask for that information. And just know that if your parent does not have a social security number, that's okay. You can just put all zeros when you're applying for FAFSA. And I'll explain a little bit more about why it's important to have that information in the next slide, but oh wait, we can go back, sorry. So other than that, you're gonna need your 2019 tax information, like financial information. So I list out all these different docs, like income tax form, W-2 form, all these forms that just seem like hella. So I think at this point, it's definitely important to have that conversation with your parent, your caretaker, your guardian, just to check if they have these different forms so you have that ready. And just know whenever you fill out these applications each year, FAFSA or DREAM Act is based on prior year information, which is why it's asking for 2019 information and not this year. And other than that, it's definitely important just have these different documents accessible and stored somewhere safe. And I say that just because there are so many steps to the financial aid process after applying. And one example is how the school or the institution may ask for a copy of these documents. So it's important to have them accessible because you have to provide that proof later on. So always have a copy available.
Can I interject here just for a moment, Regin?
Yeah.
I have a question about foster youth. So a lot of the information that we have on here and that you've shared so far is students and parents. But could you share a little bit about the foster youth that we serve and how we could help them in the application that they're going to be doing?
Mm-hmm. Is this in general for the financial aid applications or with the CHAPE grant? Just to clarify.
Either one, but for their applications, because they are not being supported by a parent, they're not going to have 2019 federal taxes. So what would the step for those foster youth be?
Right, so if you don't have a parent or guardian, then you wouldn't have to provide your parents' information and or like you wouldn't have to do that section specifically. So at that point, the student could just file their own information, because in the application it'll ask for like student information and then like parent guardian information. So if you don't have a parent or guardian, then you wouldn't have to do that part and you would just have to fill out your information. And if you do not have, like, if you didn't have to file taxes or W-2 forms and all of that in 2019, then you wouldn't have to provide that information. All you would have to say is, I did not file, and then it wouldn't ask for that information. So let me know if that answers the question, or if there's follow-up to that. Oh, my bad.
Yeah, Dr. Monique and the Elder Kwanzaa just said yes, it did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Right, I think just really emphasizing, even though I'm noting all these different information that you would need, like for example, if you were not required to file taxes, then that would not apply to you. Like you wouldn't need to provide that information. So even if I'm listing out all these different things, it doesn't mean like that you would have to have that information if you don't have it, if that makes sense. But we can go to the next slide, and then I'll just expand a little more about the importance of what I was talking about in the last one. So if you are going to be a high school senior and you'll be applying for FAFSA Dream Act or CSS Profile, like I mentioned, it's important to get this information and the documents ready just to have that on hand for when you're filling out these applications. And if you're applying for FAFSA, and if it's applicable, you'll need an FSA ID, so a federal student aid ID for yourself, but also one for your parents, one of your parents or guardians. And with that, it's important because the FSA ID is how you can start the FAFSA and also sign it. But I mentioned before, if your parent guardian does not have a social security number, then the way they would sign is just through a signature page that will be available when you're doing the application. So just know there's different options, but if you can have an FSA ID, that is like the fastest way for an application to process. And with that, I think just emphasizing, if you have a sibling in college, definitely hit them up and ask if they have like your parents' FSA ID information. I've had several encounters with students where they were unable to have their parents sign their application because their parent couldn't log onto their account because their sibling had created it and they didn't have that information. So it's good just to like check in with your sibling and make sure that y'all have all that information ready and write it down somewhere safe. Definitely gotta have your password account tracker somewhere, since you'll be using this application throughout your college career. And other than that, I recommend to find out when your high school is hosting their Cash for College event. This is where you can get support filling out your application. So definitely take advantage of that if your school offers it. And in general, I recommend apply for scholarships. This can go a long way in terms of covering costs that might come up. And I feel a lot of scholarships are available to like high school seniors. So it's good for you to start looking into scholarship sites that can match you with different scholarships, or asking your counselor or teachers, like the folks around you, about local scholarships because those are less competitive. And there's hella scholarships out there. I'll take an example. Like for me, I applied to a lot of like identity-based scholarships when I was in high school. So I was able to get scholarships just because I was Filipino and I met like other requirements. And I think another one, this one's kind of random. I remember someone I met in college mentioned how they were just recording a video of them talking about their cat, and they were able to get like $300 by just submitting that. So just examples of the different types of scholarships that are out there. I think it is just a matter of investing the time to apply and just knowing that it does pay off. And other than that, I recommend that you research, create that college list with financial safety schools. So when I'm talking about financial safety schools, I'm talking about schools that will be affordable. So with that, it's just to make sure you have a lot of options open. And I'm thinking about schools that are like local, so you can apply to like nearby community colleges or even like nearby CSUs, because those will be more affordable than if you were to go like in SoCal or out of state sometimes. And I feel tonight we did talk about how like there was just so much information shared, good information, but I think it's clear there's a lot of work that has to be done like with these applications. So it's important to just have your support team ready, have that support system to like talk with throughout the process. I feel applying for college can feel like a lot. So I think definitely just have that team with you throughout, and talk with your parents, legal guardian, just to, I think with that, just to talk about how you would be paying for college and just to be on the same page about what it looks like just in general, like to go to college and to cover all these different costs. That's good. Okay. Yeah, so other than that, if you have any questions, you can reach my team at the Bay Area Inquiry at usfire.org. Or if you want to contact me individually, you can hit me up at rejohnq@usfire.org. And I could like chat that out, I think. But yeah, I think other than that, I can just answer questions. This was just like a very large overview of the process.
It's a great wealth of knowledge. Thank you, Red John. I do want to field some of these questions here in the chat, in the question and answer box. So there was a question about community college. So the participant said, do you need financial aid for community college? Like if you live outside of it, is it still something that is required? So for students going to community college, do you still suggest that they do a financial aid application?
Right. Yeah. So with that, I do recommend to apply just because I had mentioned earlier, sometimes there are other costs that come up that financial aid could help cover. And I know at CCSF, if you apply for financial aid, if you like meet certain requirements, sometimes they'll give a stipend just for you to be able to cover different costs like books, school supplies, food. So with that, it's still good for you to apply. And if you're concerned about, let's see, like financial aid having kind of, I don't know how to say it. So I think just to backtrack a little, there is a certain amount of years that each grant can be used. So with Cal Grant, it's up to 4 years. And then with Pell Grant, it's up to 6 years. And if you're concerned about like exceeding that amount, then just know when it comes to Cal Grant, when you apply, you can like put your Cal Grant on hold while you're at community college. So that way you can use it when you transfer to a 4-year. So there are ways to like postpone your financial aid, but there's benefits to applying because some scholarships ask for your information from the financial aid applications. And sometimes the schools, like the community college, can give you certain financial aid like grants or like the stipend I was talking about just because you applied. So let me know if that answered the question or you want me to expand a little more.
I think the question was, you know, do I need financial aid at a community college? And like you said, it's going to depend on that specific situation. But it is something that they can do. They can apply for financial aid at a community college. But to take that one step further, somebody else asked, would you need to renew your financial aid if you transfer from a city college to a 4-year system?
That's a good question. So would you have to renew your financial aid if you transfer from a CC to a UC or CSU or another 4-year? So yes, every year you have to renew your financial aid. And I think something important to note is if you're to change schools, just make sure that the school that you list out on your financial aid application is updated. And with the Cal Grant, you also create like another profile on a separate website called Web Grants. And with that, just making sure your school is updated on there. So I think the important takeaways is yes, you're renewing your financial aid every year. And then second, if you're changing schools, just make sure that your school of attendance is updated on the websites where your financial aid is connected to. So like FAFSA, Dream Act, or CSS Profile, or Web Grants.
I think you piqued a lot of people's interest when you were talking about work study. So we had a lot of questions in the chat that I answered about work study, and could you give examples of work study? How is someone eligible? Also, is that something that people get right away, or is there another application process? So if you could go over work study and what that entails.
Right. So with work study, that is essentially you applying for a job, but it's through the campus. So with that, your campus will probably have their own like, it's like a database or like their own site where you can start to look into the different jobs you can apply for. And I think something to note, even if like your campus might not be in person, like this year, there are some jobs that would offer like remote work. So I feel it's good just to look into that. But normally, like if things are in person, there's like a variety of jobs that you could do. Like I remember I had friends that were working in the dining halls. And so they were like preparing food and like helping distribute that. Or I had friends that were like working the front desk at different places like the libraries. and different offices on campus. And I think a benefit of that was they liked how it was pretty relaxed. So for them, they just had to pretty much, let's say, like look at student IDs just to check like students are going into the space, and then they could just work on their homework or anything else while they're on shift. So there are some relaxed positions like that one, like the desk job. But other than that, you can also go into like other more intentional positions, I would say, like if you want to develop like your research skills, that could be something, or if you want to work at like your school's wellness center. For me, I was a student assistant at an office, so I enjoyed doing like event planning, program planning, and it was like in an identity-based, community-based space. So for me, it was really taking that time to learn and provide resources for my community. So there's a variety of work study positions out there. And I'm not sure if this is true for all campuses, but at least when I was at Berkeley, for us, we could like work with the financial aid office to do kind of like an off-campus position that could be used with our work study funds. Like for example, I was doing this internship in Oakland, and they were able to connect with the financial aid office so I could use work study funds towards that. So I think just asking the questions with the financial aid office too, if you need more work study funds, because that's coming from like the federal government, or working that out with your employer when you're on campus. But with that, just know there's like each school has their own system of finding jobs, these work study positions, and there's a variety of different positions you can apply for.
So here's a question that I get from a lot of the students and families that I serve. Somebody submitted saying, the sooner that you submit your FAFSA or DREAM Act, your financial aid application, the sooner that you submit that to October 1st, the more chances you receive of getting financial aid. Is this true or not?
That's a good question. So that is, I think, something to know. Like I talk about how it's like for some private institutions, they have their own deadlines with CSS profile. So I think just if you're interested in private colleges, just knowing those deadlines, so that way you can get financial aid, or like know your financial aid package for those colleges as soon as possible. But it's as long as you apply before March 2nd, then you'll be considered for the most amount of financial aid. So even if you apply, so I guess an example, if I'm applying October 1st, it doesn't mean I'm gonna get like much more money than if I applied October 15th. I think just know, just submit it before the deadline and be aware of other deadlines that schools are asking for, because that's how they start to put together like their school grants, scholarships and whatnot that they're going to provide. So with that question, yeah, I'm just going to say, just be mindful of different institution deadlines and just submit it before March 2nd. If you're looking at California schools and want to be considered for the most like state, federal school aid.
We had a very specific question that I don't know the answer to. Trevor asked, what assets are not included on FAFSA? So there was rumor that market value home that you're living in, retirement savings, 401k, and another list of a few things are not included on the FAFSA. So can you confirm what assets are not included on the FAFSA?
That's a good question. Don't know the list off the top of my head, but just know that when it comes to assets, when we're talking about property, it's any property that isn't the current like home that you're living in and owning. So I think that was one of the points brought up, but you could also find this online. And also something to note when you're doing the FAFSA, usually there is a question mark to the side of each question, and they will specify what exactly they're asking for. And they also like list out what type of assets that they're including or not including. So when you're on the application, definitely take advantage of that feature, because they are very specific about where you should look on your tax forms and what information they're asking for.
Awesome. A lot of questions that I got were about where should I look for scholarships, or where do you recommend that I do my research, or how many can I apply to? When should I start applying? So around scholarships, where do you recommend that students and families look? And then which ones should they be applying to?
Mhm. Yeah, so, you know, you can like find a lot of different scholarship sites online. One that we talk about at U Aspire is College Greenlight. So that's just like an example of a website that you could put in your information. Like, for example, I could say I'm Filipino, I'm from Stockton, XYZ, all this different information. And then what they'll do is they'll match you to potential scholarships that you could be eligible to apply for. So that's an example. I think, yeah, College Greenlight. I don't know if that's still around. There's like a scholarships.com. I think you could like literally just like search like scholarship sites. And with that, those are like, sometimes they are like national scholarships, so they might be more competitive. So what I recommend to my students is try to look into local scholarships. Like I know in SF, I think the Mason Scholarship is an example, just because these are less competitive and it could just be a higher chance of you getting it compared to if you're like competing with folks across the nation, right? So definitely ask your counselors, your teachers, your peers, any friends that are older that might know of like scholarships you could apply to that are local. And you can apply anytime, like even if you're not a senior right now. And it's good just to be aware because I think I'm not sure how many other scholarships out there like this, but some of them require a lot of work. Like my partner, for example, he's a Gates Millennium Scholar and he had to write like a lot of different essays, but he was able to get support throughout undergrad from that scholarship fund. And he's in grad school right now and he's still getting support from them. So with all that said, the ones that you have to put in hella work for, they do pay off and they can be really helpful over time.
Thank you so much for your time today, Redjon, and sharing with us so many different pieces that are essential to students meeting their academic goals later through their finances. Just want to give you an appreciation. I know you've put your email down in that chat box there, so thank you for that. We are going to be closing off this Map to College 2020. Thank you everyone for being here today. I'm sorry if we weren't able to answer your question or you feel like you have follow-up questions. Our email is here on the page. The website is below that, letting you know where we're going to publish, where we're going to be able to publish the recording of this webinar today. Thank you so much for showing up for yourself, for your community, for all the moves that you're making. Thank you to our presenters. I'll hand it over to Emmanuel for his last words as well.
Presenters, thank you so much for joining us and for providing the support that all of us need, myself included. To all the students here today, thank you for taking time out of your day, because you did have school today, to be here with us. Shout out to Carol, Amayali, and Gabriel, some Pitch alumni students. And with that, I just want to thank all of you for being here and recognize that all of you did something to help prepare you, to better prepare you for your future. There are things that sometimes you think you have to do, and something that you did right now is something that not many of your friends are doing. So with that, just think today I did something that's going to prepare me for college. And to say that, please ask us our questions, or like Karen said, we're at cseo@ucsf.edu. Find us a PowerPoint on our website, which is cseo.ucsf.edu, and use us as resources. These presentations were to give you an outline of what do I need to do. Now it's on you to come reach out to us and people in your school or community to better prepare you for what the next step is. With that, I want to thank all of you for your time and good luck with everything.